Hey, my fellow comic book collectors. I got to hang out in the basement of my local comic book store recently for a few hours, and I came back with some goodies. Want to know what they are? Stay tuned. And of course, if you like what you see, don't forget to hit like and subscribe down below. Leave a comment, I'll respond to it. And yeah, so I got to hang out in the basement of my local comic book store, and I was there for quite a few hours. And there's a little bit of a history to this too, so let me first explain that. So my comic book store in my area, it has changed hands quite a few times. It's actually on its third owner, as far as I know. And essentially, what had happened is that in the 80s and 90s, the owner one, they would just buy books, which any comic book owner would do. But what they would do is they didn't throttle how many books they were buying. So, for example, if X Factor was selling, maybe 20 books with issue number 20, they instead of ordering another 20 or 15 books, to know that some are not going to be selling, they would still order 50. And the next issue, they would order 50, and then another 50. And even though if the book was consistently selling 20 issues, they would order 50. So there's lots of leftover books. This went on from the 80s, like the late 80s, to early 2000s. And then it was purchased by owner 2 in, I think, 2002, 2003. So for over a decade, a bunch of books were purchased in excess, in by large numbers. And it's baffling to consider this and how a business could run this way, but it was done that way. So owner 2, what they did is that they would tell people, here's essentially a short box for $50, fill it up as long as it doesn't go over the height of the long box. You can get any book in there for $50, and they didn't check the boxes. Now I'm in my late 30s. I would have been in high school or just after high school when all this was coming out, or this amazing deal was coming out, and I definitely was not aware of it and wouldn't have known. I wasn't into comic book collecting that heavily back then. So when the new owner took over in like 2002ish, a lot of people went in and would just go through the basement of this comic book store and just buy books, put them in the pile. They'd say, okay, yep, that fits the box, and then there you go, $50 and you're gone. So I know for certain, first Gambit, that was probably taken. There's a few Hulks, so I'll get into that in a second. But essentially, people were just looting the store for $50. And owner 2 didn't bother to check what their inventory was, and they lost out on a lot of potential money. So owner 3 purchased the store just pre-COVID, and they want to inventory everything. And I was there just before COVID hit, and scoured the basement, and it was well over, and I kid you not, about 900 long boxes of comic books. Yes, 900 long boxes of comic books. And in those 900 long boxes, they were full. But the worst part is none of it was inventoried and none of it made any sense. So in a box, you'd find, say X Factor again, you'd find the 80s series, you'd find the 2000 series, and the 2012 series, all in the same long box. Because when the owners were done with their back issues, and the second owner, they just stuff it all in. And so there was no consistency to what was where. And on top of that, in, say, that X Factor box, you would find some Uncanny X-Men or some Batman. It was nuts. It was insane, and none of the boxes were labeled. None of it was inventoried, as I said. So the current owner 3, is going through it all. And if you look closely at some of the videos here, you'll see that everything is labeled accordingly, because they've at least sorted what goes where. Like I said, it's 900 boxes. That's over 300,000 comics. So it's a lot of books to sort through. And so I have a decent relationship with my local comic book store, and I asked if I could pop in the basement and take a look and see what they had. So the answer was yes. And I spent a few hours on the weekend just to take a look and see what they had. And I wasn't hoping for gold. The owner did say that recently they did come across a Hulk 180. So that is arguably the cameo appearance of Wolverine. So that's great. So, that's still a pretty decent sized book. I wasn't expecting to find gold. I know I didn't really find the greatest grails ever, but I also wasn't going to spend my entire life down there because, oh my goodness, it is a mess. So, new owner's doing a great job cleaning it up. I'm excited to see what they eventually get resolved from all of it and what they do find. But as for what I found, here we go. Well, actually, just one book I'm going to start with is my in-laws ended up grabbing me a copy of this Superman book at an estate sale. This book here, it's I mean, looks like it was from the library because there's a Dewey Decimal label at the bottom there, and of course there's the library card, or where it should have been, pulled out here. And I learned a little bit about this book. It is a Superman book and record set from 1975, and this is from Peter Pan Records, and it either came with a 45 record or it did not. These ones don't look like they did, but essentially the music would play along to the story that you're reading. And what was really interesting about this book, in terms of value, they aren't worth too much, but what's really interesting about this book is that, yeah, it's a Superman story, but if you get to the whole end of it, it's all color and done in cardstock cover, but when you get to the end and flip it over, like, where do you find a Superman story with Marvel characters being advertised on the back there? I just thought it was really interesting. So anyway, I thought that was just a really cool thing to start off with this video. So in the basement, comic book store basement, I found a lot of books. I always hoped to find some Golden Age horror, and that's not going to be the case here, but I found the reprints. So Russ Cochran and Gemstone did some reprints of EC horror, and I grabbed some of the covers and stories that I did enjoy. So I have a few here, and they're not bagged and boarded yet because I still want to read through them all. But we have Tales from the Crypt. This is the reprint issue 1, so first Fearsome issue. This is not actually issue 1 here. So I've got that. I have this other Tales from the Crypt here, the fantastic 1950s EC comics. I have the incredible Johnny Craig double-sided horror Tales from the Crypt. I mean, if this was the original, like this goes for a pretty penny. This cover here from Johnny Craig. Then we also have Vault of Horror, and this is actually the first. Yeah, I think this is the first Vault of Horror issue. Like this cover is actually proper to it. And then I have this, like, if you've seen my Golden Age video, you're going to see that the very last book, the #1 book on my list, is Vault of Horror, number, I was like 35? I can't remember now. Yeah, 35. And it's because of this cover here. And so, the thing that drives me nuts about this cover, though, is, yeah, this is as close as I'm probably going to get to actually owning the book, but it's a Vault of Horror book is what this should be, but Tales from the Crypt presents the Vault of Horror, and then at the bottom it says, this is the original version of the cover of Weird Science number 15. They're all EC books, but Tales of the Crypt presents Vault of Horror with Weird Science inside. Like, okay, cool. So, I mean, these were all like a couple dollars in the basement, and they're all in great condition too. They weren't bagged at all, but yeah, it was just really cool to have. So I'm really excited to go through these books. So what we do have, and like I said, there's nothing incredibly spectacular, but we're gonna go through a little bit of history here. So the first book I have here is Strife's Strike File, #1, and this was just a one-shot. So after the Executioner's song, Strife had this book here that explained his strike file, explaining all the characters in the X universe, and just essentially, here's who I know and here's who I'm going to kill, or here's what I'm going to use against whatever. And the neat thing about this is it had a few first appearances of characters that you wouldn't think, like, oh, this one shot had first appearances. Like, why aren't these established characters already? How can you have a book about characters that don't exist yet? But here we are. So, like, it's a first appearance of Threnody and also the Upstarts. So the Upstarts was a group that had, like, Trevor Fitzroy and Fenris in it. It also had introduced Sienna Blaze, who really is a no-name character, but she first appears in this. And then it also has a first appearance of a character named Holocaust, but it's not the Age of Apocalypse Holocaust. It's just another guy named Holocaust, and outside of being introduced in this book, and he had a backstory and everything, he didn't go anywhere. So they had introduced this entire character in this book, and I think it was Joe Kubert maybe introduced or created him. There's a whole slew of creators involved in this book. But yeah, it didn't go anywhere. None of these characters went anywhere. Anyway, the book's a couple dollars. It's like near mint condition, but I just thought it was really cool to have because it has a bunch of first appearances that are really irrelevant. And who doesn't like nipple armor? Like, look, I don't know if I can get that too close here without the. Oh boy. The next book I have is Extreme X-Men, and this is the Chris Claremont after leaving X-Men. He came back and he ended up doing this book here. And the neat thing about this book is that first appearance of Vargas, whatever. This had an interesting take off of a few different characters, mainly Sage, and also it had Thunderbird 3 introduced, or not introduced here, but he was a main character in this series. There's Thunderbird 1, who died back in the 70s. There's Thunderbird 2, James Proudstar. And then there's Thunderbird 3, because, having unique names is really difficult in the X-Men world, I guess. Next up is a very interesting duo. It's Dirty Pair, and this is Dirty Pair 2. This is by Eclipse. These were done by Adam Warren. And yeah, it's just really cool stuff. It's all done in black and white. So they have Dirty Pair. This is 1 of 5. There was Dirty Pair 1, 2, and 3. And this is 1 of 5, and then I have issue 3 here that I found as well. But it also says erroneously 1 of 5 at the top, but this is issue 3. So yeah, I got Dirty Pair 1 and 3 here. Dirty Pair 2, 1, and 3. So pretty cool to have both those books, and again, both in near mint condition. Just excited to have great art here. Like the artwork inside the book is phenomenal. It's very clean, and yeah, if you ever get a chance to check these books out, they're really great. Next up is we're getting to some Bill Sienkiewicz, and we're gonna get into New Mutants number 18. And oh boy, that glare. Where can I put this book? That's all right for now. So New Mutants number 18. This is Bill Sienkiewicz's first interiors of New Mutants, and it's also the first appearance of Warlock. It is also the first appearance of Magus, which is Warlock's dad, and also the first full appearance of Demon Bear. So this book here, it's not in the greatest condition, surprisingly, despite it being in that basement there. But it's just it's a key issue for New Mutants, and glad to have that. And then there was another key issue that I came across, which is New Mutants number 16. And so this book here, unfortunately, it had that side there, had a little bit of a nick on the top. But it's also a newsstand edition. Oh my goodness, I don't know what's my left and right here. It's a newsstand edition. It's also the first appearance of the Hellions, which is also Thunderbird, who's on the cover there. Cat's Eye, Tarot, Jetstream, whatever. The rest of them. But yeah, this is James Proudstar. So this is Thunderbird 1's younger brother. So this is Thunderbird 2. So I found Thunderbird 3 and Thunderbird 2 in the basement there. Almost all Thunderbirds are go. So yeah, it's I actually have I pre-record a few of these videos, and I actually have a video talking about me guessing what his first appearance was, and getting it wrong. So, but I was at the comic book store, and I'm like, oh, I know this is the first appearance of Thunderbird. So anyway, this is just a cool key issue to have again. So this was a great find. And lastly, the big find is another New Mutants. So what other big New Mutants there is? There's definitely 86 and there's definitely 98. Neither one of them were there, unfortunately. And that's the issue with the story that I told you earlier, is that those boxes would get filled in the early 2000s. And I'm sure lots of people walked out with issues 98 and 86 being the first Cable and Deadpool. Because I can tell you there was tons of issues of 85, there was tons of issues of 97 and 99, a few 100s. But yeah, unfortunately. And actually, just as an aside, I did find in there a Tales to Astonish, 80. I did find, X-Men 26s, or is it 25 or 24, 25, or 26? It's the one where Wolverine gets the adamantium ripped out. I think it's 26. And then I also found New X-Men 114, which is a hot book right now. That's the first Grant Morrison book and first Cassandra Nova. So that's a hot book. And I found I'm not going to lie, guys, about 70 copies there. So, I let the owner know about all these books, and I don't buy them for myself, and I don't collect everything there. I do have New Mutants. or New X-Men 114. But I let them know, like, hey, this is the box here that has all these New X-Men 114. So, keep an eye on this and sell them. So, important to have a good give and take relationship with your local comic book store, because then you get a deal on books. So, my final book, New Mutants. It's New Mutants Annual #2. And what's so important about this annual book? It's actually the first appearance of Psylocke, and it's U.S. Psylocke. So this is pretty much a near mint book too. It's wild. They had about 4 of these that I came across, and I just needed the one. And so, first appearance of Psylocke. Arguably, her first appearance really is in Captain Britain #8, which is from the 70s. This is 86, and the thing is that Captain Britain, when he was first made, and by Chris Claremont, that was published by Marvel UK, and technically that existed in a different world and universe than the 616 universe that the comic books that we know of here. Eventually it did branch in and absorb into 616. So while Psylocke first appeared, technically Betsy Braddock first appeared in Captain Britain #8. This was actually her first appearance in the real world, and she had blonde hair in the US or the UK version. She was blinded in this one here. It's a pretty wild story if you haven't read it. But yeah, that's New Mutants Annual #2. It's again near mint condition and first appearance of Psylocke. So that was a real great find. Something I wasn't expecting to find at all. I definitely want to spend a lot more time in that basement, but oh man, I definitely needed to take a breather too, because the amount of dust down there, man, my God. So yeah, that's the interesting list I had there. I know it's a weird calamity of different books here, but I hope you enjoyed what you saw. If you have any further questions or comments, leave them in the comments below. I do like to respond to all of them, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.